Hello my guys and welcome back to the channel. I hope that you're doing great and that you had a great weekend, because I had a good weekend. Yesterday I was doing some stuff with friends and I decided I don't really want to sit in front of my PC so much since the last days were kind of overwhelming. But anyways, I wanted to make this video since a long time, and this is a topic that is annoying to me since a couple of years, and I think you know what I'm talking about. It is skill-based matchmaking or engagement optimized matchmaking. And to make it very short, my opinion on that is that these systems are trash. We don't need them. They're creating an artificial experience for any one of us out there. And it is just not fun. And if you say, oh, I have fun in this game, like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you don't know nothing and you just wanna stomp on noobs. This is not about it. This is not about it. It's about the authenticity. And I also have data, right? It's from Call of Duty's API from 3 years ago that is analyzing Warzone and players and KDs. And this data is enough, completely enough, to prove that we don't need skill-based matchmaking. Right? We'll get into that, so don't worry. There are some sources, and I can back all that stuff up. You can also go in and do some research for yourself, and if you have something to add, and if you think I made a mistake, just let me know in the comments below. It's not a problem. I just try to make a point, and you'll see that we don't need skill-based matchmaking. And then there is a reason why we have skill-based matchmaking and engagement-optimized matchmaking, but let's talk about it later. So before we dive into today's topic, I want to take you back to when I first started playing Call of Duty. And I was just a kid, playing COD 4 on the PlayStation 3. For me, my friends, it wasn't about complex mechanics or stats, it was all about ping, right? We wanted the best connection, and the smoother your connection, the better you could play. And eventually switched to Modern Warfare 2 with a mouse and keyboard, and that's when the game truly hooked me. Servers were fluid, the matches felt natural, and skill was the true measure of success. We had no skill-based matchmaking, none of these try-hard lobbies, just pure, fast-paced fun. But fast forward to today and the experience has dramatically changed. It feels like we're constantly battling lag. Like we know in Black Ops 6, it's packet bursts and packet loss, and the servers are just rigged. And skill-based matchmaking is another issue. And don't get me wrong, I still love the games, but back then everything just ran so smoothly. Today's games often feel like they're bogged down with restrictions, and I mean, that's a conversation for another time, but the main point is, I come from an era when the gameplay was more organic. It was really authentic, and today, well, things aren't always the same and they have changed drastically. And don't get me wrong guys, I realize that some of you watching may not have experienced Call of Duty during the era I'm talking about, especially if you started with the more recent titles where SBMM was already in full force. For a lot of players today, the experience is drastically different, and it's understandable that opinions about the game can vary widely. I just want you to understand that there's players who have played the Call of Duty franchise and the older games before you did, right? And the experience was completely different, and I don't want you to fully understand my or our perspective on the old games, but you have to imagine it was different. It didn't play like it played today, and this is crucial because if you don't keep that in mind, then the rest doesn't make sense, right? And I completely understand that for players like me, the experience is different, but I also know that people who didn't play Call of Duty back in the days, they also have a completely different experience, right? And it is important to note that these differences in experience are a big part of why people have such different opinions about the game. But we'll dive deeper into that later when we look at the data, so stay tuned. Alright, but now let's talk about skill-based matchmaking. In its simplest form, SBMM tries to match player based on skill level, typically looking at your kill-death ratio, win rates, and overall performance in previous matches. And the goal is simple: to create a balanced match where players have roughly equal chances of winning. Sounds fair, right? But here's where the problem lies. Skill-based matchmaking has created this sweaty competition that makes every match feel like a grind. So imagine being a casual player, someone who just wants to jump in and have fun. With skill-based matchmaking, that often turns into a relentless battle against other players of the same skill level. And let's face it, no one wants every match to feel like a competition for first place. And this is an important note, guys, so listen carefully. There's a flaw in how people think about skill-based matchmaking and the average casual player. When we talk about the average gamer, what exactly do we mean? What does it mean to be casual? There are average KDs, and then there are casual players. Let me give you some context about myself. I've been playing games since I was 5 years old, and I've stuck to mouse and keyboard for ages. Back in the old Call of Duty games, I would casually get a 3 to 4 KD. Nothing special, just the way the game played. But in Call of Duty Black Ops 6, my KD sits at 1.6. And in today's world, it is considered very good. And here's where the problem lies. Skill-based matchmaking forces players like me, who are still playing casually, to be matched with top-tier players, like the esports guys. Now, if you're in a different skill bracket, that's fine. But this is important for you to understand. The experiences for each skill bracket are radically different. Alright, so now let us talk about the data. The data we're using comes from the Call of Duty API from about 3 years ago. API, Application Programming Interface, is a tool that allows us to access real-time data from the game, like player stats such as KD ratios. While the data is from a few years ago, it's still highly relevant today because player behavior and skill distribution haven't changed dramatically. This applies to both Warzone and 6v6 lobbies because the player skill spread is consistent across all modes. So what can we take away from this? If we look at the data, the majority of players, around 39.4%, fall into the average category with a KD of 0.78. The top 20% group is much smaller, with just 20.5% of players reaching a KD of 1.1 or higher. What's interesting here is that as you move up in skill, the number of players dramatically decreases, especially in the top 1 and top 0.1%. Now you might ask, why does this matter when we talk about skill-based matchmaking? This distribution gives us a clear picture of how players are spread across different skill levels. The system aims to match players with others of similar skill, but as we can see, the majority of players are clustered in that average range. If we were to force everyone into increasingly competitive matchups, it would be difficult for those in the higher skill brackets to find matches without consistently facing against top-tier players. And I'm not here to judge anyone's playstyle or experience, I'm just analyzing the data. And the data doesn't lie. It may hurt to face facts sometimes, but the truth is important here. For the average players, they're enjoying their gaming sessions because their basic skill-based matchmaking works just fine, like it's intended. They get matched up with others at their skill level, and they play for a year, maintaining a similar KD by the end of it. It's a straightforward experience. Which, like I said, is totally fine for me. Like, I'm happy for these people that they can enjoy the game casually. But for those, all of those above average, it's a completely different story. Since they're not the majority, these players are part of what we call the engagement optimized matchmaking system. Why? Because they're likely to improve their skills over time. These players, unlike the average ones, are motivated to get better, and they want to climb, whether it's through consistent practice or sheer dedication. That's the whole difference about it, right? Unlike skill-based matchmaking, which works in a straightforward way, matching players with others at their level, engagement-optimized matchmaking tries to create an illusion of improvement. You're constantly put in lobbies above and below your skill level. You might have some games where you perform really well and then others where it feels like you're struggling. And that's what creates the illusion that you're getting better, but in reality your skill level hasn't really changed. It's just the algorithm is playing with the matchmaking to make you feel you're improving, but you're actually completely stuck at the same skill level over and over again. And this is where huge differences in gaming experience come into play. The average player might never notice this. They're having fun and moving at their own pace, but for the higher skilled players, this engagement optimized matchmaking system feels like a trap. They're stuck in a cycle that prevents true improvement and creates frustration. And this is why there are so many diverse opinions about the game. Some players love the casual experience, while others feel trapped by the algorithm. So with all that in mind, let's calculate the probability of encountering players from each skill group over the course of 20 random 6v6 matches, assuming there is no skill-based matchmaking. So in the first step, for each match, we calculate the probability of encountering at least one player from each skill group. And given that player distribution in the player base, the bottom 10% are 12.6% of total players. The bottom 20% are 25.2% of total players. The average is 39.4% of total players. Top 20 is 20.5% of total players. Top 10% is 1.6% of total players. Top 1 is 0.6% of total players, and the top 0.1% are 0.16% of the whole player base. Now, step 2 would be to calculate the expected number of players in each skill group per 6v6 match. So for the bottom 10%, that would mean that there's 1 player per lobby. For the bottom 20%, it would be 3 players. The average guys would be 4 to 5 players, obviously, because they're the majority of the whole player base. Like I said, they're the backbone of the community. We have the top 20%, which is around 2 players per lobby. And now this is where it gets interesting. The top 10%, there's even a chance that there's not a single top 10 person in that lobby. Same with the top 1%. It is also chance that there's no top 1% guy in that lobby, and for the top 0.1% it is almost 0 players. Like, this is so rare to encounter a top 0.1 player. Okay, so let's break this down step by step. We know from the data that the player base is around 3.175 million players. And now, to come back what I've mentioned before, you're probably wondering what are the chances of facing a player from each skill group in a random 6v6 lobby over 20 games. And to calculate the probability of encountering players from each skill group over 20 games, we'll use the binomial distribution formula. The probability P of encountering a player from a skill group in at least one of these games is given by this formula. And now it's just time to apply the formula. And these are the results. So the probability of encountering at least one bottom 10% player in 20 games is approximately 89.4%. The probability of encountering at least one bottom 20% player in 20 games is approximately 99.7%. The probability of encountering at least one average player in 20 games is approximately 99.93%. The probability of encountering at least one top 20% player in 20 games is approximately 98.9%. And now it will look very different. If you take the top 10%, the probability of encountering at least one top 10% player in 20 games is approximately 26%. There's only a 26% chance that if you play 20 games in a row that you encounter one of these guys. And it gets even better. Now, for the top 1%, the probability of encountering at least one top 1% player in 20 games is approximately 12%. It gets even lower, and yes, you would have guessed it, the probability of encountering at least one top 0.1% player in 20 games is approximately 3%. As already mentioned, I'm in the top 10% of the players worldwide, according to the data. And here's the issue, and I think you can already see it. The lobbies aren't mixed anymore. You have these different skill brackets. And it's totally fine to have this protective bracket. And I want to take a second and really make sure that you guys understand what this protective bracket is. And there's also streamers and content creators who are, for example, disabled. So they might not have any arms, any hands, they might just have one hand. These people, for example, might be paralyzed. It is maybe really young children, or I don't know what. It is just a very protective skill bracket. And just because of skill-based matchmaking, they allow other content creators. I'm not calling out anyone here. I'm not even watching these guys because I know it's not authentic, and you guys know this as well. They have these 170 to 5 gameplay and 3 nuclears in one game. I don't know, like this. If you watch this and think this is legit, you have a problem. Like, I'm sorry, but you should rethink of how authentic the gameplay is, because you have to imagine these people actively go into these lobbies and just destroy these people who have actually no chance of defending themselves. And this makes people quit the game, right? Because they're invading their protective space, so to say. And in my opinion, no matter if we have skill-based matchmaking or not, there should always be a system or a protective bracket. I don't know how they analyze this stuff and why someone would be in that bracket, but I'm all for this bracket, right? Because it has to be protected, and in my opinion, it is not fair at all to manually two-box yourself into these lobbies. But like I said, this wouldn't be an issue if we wouldn't have skill-based matchmaking in the first place. So now to the question, what is the true purpose of skill-based matchmaking? And you might have guessed it, it's to preserve the average player bubble that we have in Call of Duty. Skill-based matchmaking is tailored to protect this majority from frustration, and without it, average players could face highly skilled opponents more frequently, resulting in mismatched games and poor experience. But as we saw earlier, it is almost never the case. Like, the chances are very low, even when playing 20 games in a row. I don't know if there's a casual gamer, so to say, out there who would play 20 games in a row. So for these people, skill-based matchmaking works seamlessly. They barely notice it, and every game feels competitive but not overwhelming, with occasional exposure to better players for aspirational moments and perhaps to encourage spending when they see fancy skins or gear, right? As I mentioned before, the biggest issue is for the skilled players out here. And as you understood by now, we're not even the majority, right? For above average and highly skilled players, the skill-based matchmaking becomes a trap. And as your skill increases, the system pits you against tougher opponents constantly, removing the variety that makes casual modes so enjoyable. The fun of sometimes dominating weaker opponents or playing against a mix of skill levels is gone and replaced by a treadmill of increasingly challenging matches. Even worse, skill-based matchmaking punishes improvement. If you're skilled, your victories will be met with tougher lobbies, while your losses may pair you with less skilled teammates, making every game feel stacked against you. It's no longer about casual fun, it's a battle against an invisible algorithm. And by now you might understand already why the community is divided and why there's so many different opinions. But let's break it down. So we have the lowest skill bracket down there, so to say the protective skill bracket, and they are being dominated by people two-boxing. And this wouldn't be a problem if we wouldn't have skill-based matchmaking. So you have people in these brackets that are getting railed by people who abuse the system and are way better than them. Then we have the average players, so to say, and they're, like I said, in their big bubble, like the average bubble, and they probably enjoy the game a lot. And then you also have the players who are above average and highly skilled. And we, same as the guys being in the protective brackets, we do not enjoy this game because it is working against us. If you're below average, you'll get stomped by people two-boxing in your lobbies and you cannot prevent it. Like, I am so sorry for these people. I don't even want to imagine this. Like, being at a deficit already, I would assume, and getting railed by these people who just abuse the system is completely wrong. And on the other hand, you have highly skilled players, people who want to improve, who can improve, who know that they have a specific set of skills, and the system is preventing them from doing so. They're being punished. And this is completely wrong. The system is completely broken. It has no place. And this is what I don't understand. Why do we have skill-based matchmaking when we have ranked modes? What is ranked mode for? I thought ranked is based on your skill. Like, if you're good at the game, you would climb in ranks, like in every other game out there. Why put skill-based matchmaking into casual lobbies? I don't understand. So if you ask me, guys, skill-based matchmaking is a marketing tool. The gaming industry has evolved since years, and so has its monetization model. So here's the truth, guys. Skill-based matchmaking exists to maximize profits, not to improve the game for all players. It is protecting the average player bubble that ensures the largest group has a relaxing, enjoyable experience, increasing the likelihood of spending money in-game, and the skilled players, though important, represent a smaller group, and if these players leave due to skill-based matchmaking, it's seen as an acceptable loss. Like, they're perceived as less likely to spend anyways. So Activision couldn't care less about you and me leaving. All they care about is that they protect the average player base. So if you're a casual player, you'll identify with this. Like, the system works as intended and you have a great time. You see a skin or a bundle you like and you'll be like, yeah man, I just buy it because you enjoy the game. And for skilled players, it's the total opposite. The constant grind makes the game unfun and discouraging spending. Like, right? Like, it's like, it makes sense, right? If I don't enjoy the game, why would I spend money on it? And this difference shows how developers prioritize mass appeal over community feedback. And I'm talking to the people that have played Call of Duty since forever, so to say. I think you will completely understand me. And what I also wanted to explain or show in this video is that you might be one of the casual players and now understand why there's people who have issues with the game. And to wrap things up now, when we talk about skill-based and engagement-optimized matchmaking, it hurts everyone in the long run. The casual players, for example, are shielded by the skill-based matchmaking and they're not likely to encounter anyone being better or worse, which just means they'll just be average all the time. Like, they have no chance of improving. And this is also an important point because if you get the chance to play against weaker and stronger opponents, this is how you learn. This is how you improve. And how do you think I improved back in the days? Because I was playing over and over again. And I wanted to get better, and here and there you had people who were way better than you in your team or in the enemy team, and you just tried to see what they made different. Like maybe, I don't know, adjust your aim sensitivity. Maybe start aiming before you go around corners and all that stuff. Maybe aim to the head instead of looking at the bottom. Stuff like this, right? So these guys will never have a different experience, and this is why I can also feel sad for them. I mean, even if they're enjoying the game, this is totally fine with me, but they have no variation whatsoever. They're stuck in this bubble. They're being protected for obvious reasons. Then we have the skill players, and skill-based matchmaking stifles them with repetitive, artificial matchmaking with no variation, and the joy of casual play is gone. And what do we do? Since years, and I want to make sure you guys understand, I didn't buy the game. I have the Game Pass, so this is why I can play it or test it. But we stopped buying this game since years. So many people don't buy it anymore because it's always the same. We stop buying it, we stop playing it, and we move on. And Activision doesn't care about us because we're nothing to them. We're a minority. We're getting replaced with other casuals who join the franchise. And then there is rank play versus casual modes. And the existence of unranked modes makes skill-based matchmaking in casual play redundant. Why force competitive systems onto modes that are meant for unwinding? Developers claim fairness, but the reality is profit-driven manipulation, guys. And the ultimate conclusion about it is skill-based matchmaking isn't about making games better, it's about ensuring maximum spending, and Activision and similar companies use skill-based matchmaking to protect their most lucrative player base, the average players, while disregarding skilled players by prioritizing profits over the community. By prioritizing profits over community, they alienate loyal fans and destroy the natural variety that once made gaming fun. I just wanted to share my findings, and this journey started within the first few days of playing Black Ops 6, when it became glaringly obvious that the matchmaking wasn't natural. The game felt rigged, and if you don't feel that way, congratulations, you're the lucky target audience, you're the casual player enjoying the game in a comfortable bubble, free from the punishment of algorithms, and honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. And for the rest of us, though, we've come to accept the reality. We're too skilled for these systems, and we disrupt the average player's flow, and publishers prioritize their comfort to keep the majority happy and spending. It's a business decision, plain and simple, but it leaves many of us unable to enjoy games like we once did, and the data backs it up. It's not about fairness, it's about profits. To top it off, my time with Black Ops 6 is officially over, I would say, because Activision seems to have wiped my account from existence with no explanation and no resolution. Because yesterday I just wanted to play some games and Activision asked me to sign in with my email and password, so I did. And it said that either my email or password is wrong. So I just logged into Activision on the website and requested to reset the password. And I mean, I've got emails from them in the last couple of days because of friend requests and all that stuff. But I didn't get anything. It said that if there is an account associated with that email address, I would get a link to reset my password. But I didn't. And I asked some friends that had me in their friends list, and I'm gone. I can't even find my stats on tracker sites or anything. It's just gone. I don't know where it is. But honestly, I'm not even mad anymore. Like, I'm completely done with Black Ops 6, and I think it was last week when I just downloaded MW3 and played it, and I have the best experience ever. I haven't played this game before. I didn't even really know it's out there. Like, Black Ops 6 was the first one after, what was it, Modern Warfare 2019 that I really heard of. Like, World War II, I guess, and Vanguard. Like, I didn't really heard of them, but anyways. If you're a casual player and made it this far, I hope you now understand why there's so much frustration about skill-based matchmaking, and if you're one of the frustrated players, I hope this helps you see why casual players might love the game. No hard feelings, it's just two sides of the same coin. And that's it for today's video, guys. Thanks for all the support lately. Once again, I'm still getting messages, comments, people saying, oh, it really helped my connection and it's fixed now. I'm really glad I could help you. But let me know what you think of skill-based matchmaking in the comments below. I'm interested in your KD, if you're fine with sharing that, and I'm interested in what was your first Call of Duty. Why are you still playing? And maybe why did you stop playing? So take care everyone. See you in the next one.